That was the final out last night, which put the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series. Final score over the Atlanta Braves, 6-2, and that's not all. If your taste runs to the Brewers and Angels, this is how that was decided. Brewers 4, Angels 3. How's that to start off the morning? We enjoyed all those games. Don't want to take Jim Kelly's thunder, but he is in Milwaukee, ready to give us a full report on both games. How is it there, Jim?
William and Diane, it is cold, it is dark, it is very early here in Milwaukee. Most of the Brewers and the city, indeed, have been up most of the night celebrating. Meanwhile, the Cardinals have flown back into St. Louis. We'll have more a little later.
I can see all the celebrations still there behind you. We'll have more. And this morning?
This morning we're going to start spending a lot of time analyzing the unemployment situation. We'll be doing it all week, seeking advice on how to survive when you're out of work as well. And we begin this morning with two reports. Who are the unemployed and what difference will unemployment make at the polls this November?
Steve will have World Series forecasts and we will have the headlines right now. Again, it will be the Cards versus the Brewers in the World Series. Police sees the gunman who has been holding a group of hostages aboard a train since Friday. 2 of the hostages are found dead. And in Poland, leaders of the now outlawed Solidarity Party are calling for a general strike. If
somehow you managed to miss it, the Cards completed their 3-game sweep of the National League playoffs last night and beating the Atlanta Braves by 6-2. Over in the American League, however, the Brewers captured their first pennant with a 4-3 victory over the California Angels. And Jim Kelly, as you saw before, is standing by in Milwaukee. He's got all of the details for us this Monday morning. Jim?
Diane, good morning again. It's very quiet now at Milwaukee County Stadium. The town was not quiet last night. Lots of celebrating, and I'm sure that was the situation in St. Louis when their plane touched down not too long ago. In Atlanta last night, the Cardinals on top over the Braves, having swept them 3-0. Let's pick it up here in the top of the second inning, a big inning for the St. Louis Cardinals, as they came up with 4 unanswered runs for the Atlanta Braves. Rick Camp is on the mound right here. This is a single by George Hendrick. Keith Hernandez would add a single, and Willie McGee a 2-run triple. 4-0 after 2.
If they could have come back and beat us after they were down 4-0 or 5-0, they'd have come back and beat us. They could have had a lot of momentum going for them, because this is the way this game is played.
We went through just about everything a ball club could go through in 1 year and still overcame the odds and still got in the playoffs. We just caught a little bit short this year. It's not a good feeling that you've come so far and got so close, but yet you're still so far away from what you've accomplished the whole year.
43-year-old knuckleballer Phil Niekro, who someday will probably be in a World Series. He can throw that knuckleball forever. Meanwhile, it'll be Bruce Sutter, the outstanding reliever for the St. Louis Cardinals, manager Whitey Herzog, St. Louis into the World Series against the Milwaukee Brewers, against a very tough California Angel baseball team. Take a look at a rather sad owner yesterday, Mr. Gene Autry, the very proud owner of the California Angels, who has sunk so much love and money into his franchise. And then this, the scene in downtown Milwaukee late last night and indeed early this morning. The Milwaukee Brewers winning the game 4-3 against the California Angels last night. This was a great catch by Marshall Edwards, who came in as a defensive replacement to rob Don Baylor.
Is this a team that stresses togetherness? You use all 25 players.
That's usually in a series like this, your key players are your bench and your bullpen, and that proved to be the situation today. Marshall Edwards, I'm half toasted right now. Marshall Edwards came off the bench and made a nice catch in the outfield, and Pete Ladd came out of the bullpen and shut the door on him. So usually in a tight series like this, the bench and your bullpen do the job.
So the Milwaukee Brewers become the first American League team ever to trail in the playoffs 0-2. They were down 2 games to the Californians, so they came back to win it 3-2. The Brewers and the Cardinals in the World Series. Diane and Bill.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, we'll talk with 2 of the delirious Brewers in our next half hour. As the baseball season is winding down to its big finish, striking NFL players and the league owners are still trying to salvage what's left of the pro football season. Yesterday, both sides agreed to seek help from the Federal Mediation Service to get their negotiations moving again.
A 4-day drama aboard an Amtrak sleeper car in Raleigh, North Carolina ended early this morning when the gunman surrendered. But 2 of his hostages, a baby and its mother, were found dead. Hours earlier, the man described as erratic had released a 4-year-old girl thought to be related to the dead mother and child. Raleigh police say the man gave up after speaking to his godfather. To protest the outlawing of solidarity, fugitive leaders have called for a 4-hour nationwide strike on November 10th. That's the second anniversary of the trade union's certification by a Polish court. And from a Warsaw prison, senior solidarity leaders have issued a letter urging workers to boycott any union set up to replace solidarity. Poland's Roman Catholic primate condemned the martial law regime's decision to ban solidarity. Archbishop Joseph Glent told 15,000 Poles, solidarity may be dead, but its ideals are indestructible. Speaking in a resounding voice, Glent prayed that Poland's new saint, canonized yesterday by Pope John Paul II, would protect over 500 solidarity leaders imprisoned under martial law. The Nobel Prize for Medicine has been given to 3 doctors, 2 Swedish and 1 British. The Nobel Institute in Stockholm awarded the 1982 Medicine Prize to Sune Bergström, Bengt Samuelsson, and John Vane for discovering substances which may control blood pressure. And the Supreme Commander of the Swedish Navy says a mystery sub hunted for 10 days may have gotten away. The commander is admitting the intruder sub may have escaped the very first day it was spotted near the top-secret Moscow naval base. Sweden dumped scores of depth charges in the channel near the base, trying to force the sub to the surface.
Back in the Middle East, Palestinian civilians in southern Lebanon are trying to prepare for the coming winter. As Mark Phillips reports, they are at the mercy of both natural and political elements.
The bulldozers have been plowing their way through what's left of the Palestinian refugee camps in southern Lebanon, trying to make some order out of the rubble the war left behind. Where there were once more than 25,000 people in this camp outside Sidon, now the UN says fewer than 7,000 are left, mostly women, children, and some old men. The UN says it's leveling the ground here so that tents can be erected to house these people through the coming winter. But to them, it's just as much a question of seeing what was left of their homes completely destroyed. There are an estimated 60,000 refugees in this situation, a homeless people once again, and now without the protection of the PLO, they're at the mercy of the Lebanese government and the occupying Israelis. And neither seems anxious to make life much easier for them. It's a position that's tied the hands of outside relief agencies. The United States has contributed $10 million to this stopgap relief effort. The long-term problem of the refugees and what to do with them has been put aside in the race to get roofs over their heads before the rains come. Mark Phillips, CBS News, at the Ain el-Helwi camp outside Sidon, Lebanon.
In Raleigh, North Carolina, a gunman today released one of 2 children he had kept hostage aboard an Amtrak sleeper car for almost 4 days. In 5 counties in Southern California, the worst is now over. The officials say that the remaining brush fire should be under control today or tomorrow. What began with apparent arson spread quickly, pushed by so-called devil winds from the Mojave Desert. Almost 75,000 acres were blackened, more than 100 homes destroyed or damaged, 150 people injured. Worst hit, Los Angeles, Ventura, and Orange counties declared disaster areas, with damage put in the tens of millions. Dry in the west and snow in the Rockies. Let's hear about all of that from Steve Deschler.
Well, the weekend was pretty productive as far as snowfall is concerned, especially across parts of the Rockies and Wyoming and also in the northern plains around the Dakotas. About 2 feet of snowfall from this big storm around the Black Hills. This is the current weather map that shows the troublemaker now pushing all the way north to northeastern Minnesota. There's a big cloud shield around the low, though, all the way back to the eastern Dakotas, as far south as around northern Iowa, and back into Wisconsin as well. 46 a couple hours ago at Milwaukee, and some rain showers in the northern chunk of the state. First of all, here's a look at the eastern satellite that shows the clouds pushing farther north along the coast. Northern Atlantic states are all clear, but Virginia and the Carolinas and northern Georgia, as well as parts of eastern Kentucky and Tennessee, are cloudy. Only a few rain showers to report early today in parts of South Carolina and southeastern Georgia. As far as the Midwest is concerned, as I mentioned, the big shield of clouds around the otherwise clear skies up into Michigan. Here's that satellite picture that shows the situation there. No showers to report, but still clouds are pushing around the Dakotas and Minnesota. A few showers in northeastern North Dakota. And out west, it's all clear right now. Mainly clear skies all around the west. 24 degrees at Cheyenne last hour. Here's their satellite picture that shows only a few clouds remaining across parts of Colorado and also northern New Mexico. Now here's a look at some weather and temperature forecasts for some locations around the country. At Buffalo, 64 in clouds, 53 in showers at Minneapolis, 74 in cloudy skies around Dallas, Texas, 75 in showers at Augusta, Georgia. As we said it would, weather has figured in all the playoff games so far, and it looks like it may figure in the World Series as well. With a northern city like Milwaukee, could we have snow for the World Series?
Could be.
I'm not forecasting it, mind you, but wouldn't it be fun?
We'll be going back to Milwaukee and Jim Kelly in a moment. Maybe it feels like snow there already in a minute.
Jim in Milwaukee is next with more on the games that put the Brewers and the Cardinals in the series. Now, 10 minutes past the hour.
Hi, I'm Cliff Robertson, and I'd like to say a few words about those very special people who save millions of lives every year, yet you never hear their names. These quiet heroes are volunteer blood donors. They make life possible for victims of accidents or violence, for patients undergoing surgery, and for those with chronic blood diseases. Although more than 30,000 pints are required every day, only 5% of those eligible give blood. So more donors are needed. We can't take it for granted that blood will always be available. An emergency can happen at any time when blood will be needed, perhaps to you or someone you love. And the right type must be on hand. So won't you please give blood today and join the ranks of the quiet heroes. Thank you.
Monday, even square pegs can't save Marshall from video fever, so they arrange an exorcism.
Father Sadushi?
Then Captain Lewis wants to crash into showbiz, but Private Benjamin's the star.
She is.
And Dick Shaw's the director. And on MASH, can the 4077 beat the Marines at bowling, or have they turned chicken? Followed by Mac Davis and Barbara Mandrell hosting country music's biggest night, the Country Music Awards. It all happens Monday.
Tuesday, catch a ride with Frank Buck to an exotic world of adventure.
Do something! I'm doing!
A place where danger is just the beginning, and the next turn may be the last.
A grenade!
Bring 'em back alive. Then a world premiere movie. Robert Urich and Meredith Baxter Birney in a lopsided love story. What he did to get thrown out of her bedroom is nothing compared to what he'll do to get back in. Take your best shot Tuesday after Bring 'Em Back Alive.
These are the headlines for Monday. It's the Cards versus the Brewers. The gunman on the Amtrak train has been seized. 2 bodies were found, and the outlawed Polish unions have scheduled a strike. Well, one set of victors didn't have to go home. They were already there, but the other set of victors received a royal homecoming in St. Louis this morning as the Cardinals returned from Atlanta after their 6-2 victory over the Braves last night. Time now to get some more details of that game from Jim Kelly, who's standing by in Milwaukee. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning again, Diane. You've heard of the Subway Series. Well, this one's being billed as the Sudsway Series. This brew for you. 2 towns famous for their brew, okay, and their hops. The St. Louis Cardinals into the World Series, as you have said. It was 0-0 in Game 3 against the Atlanta Braves last night as we go to the top of the 2nd inning right here. And the St. Louis Cardinals came up with a big inning indeed. They had 4 unanswered runs. First, George Hendricks slaps this single out into right center field. Keith Hernandez comes around to score, and the Cardinals are on top to stay. And then the big blow right here, Willie McGee off Rick Camp. There were 5 Atlanta relievers after that, 12 hits. The Cardinals stranded 11 runners. They win the game 6-2. They sweep the series 3-0.
This is our year. Everything happened for us, and I hope it keeps happening the rest of the year in the World Series for us.
You know, Whitey had him prepared, and I just wish him all the luck from here on out. But, you know, we didn't play the kind of baseball we were capable of playing, and we had played during the course of the year, whether it was fatigue or just a letdown after having such a tough race down the end, or just getting beat by a better club. They were a better club this week, and, you know, we have nothing to be ashamed of. We had a hell of a year, and it was just, you know, we did some growing, and hopefully we'll get better.
We have nothing to hang our heads about. We battled our butts off and won the National League West on the last day of the season, and we came up against the Cardinals in the playoffs, and they beat us. I mean, they were the better team in this series.
So the Cardinals are in, as are the Brewers. The Angels are out. The Angels had a 2-0 lead. The Brewers battled back, the first team to come back from that deficit. Let's pick it up here. The Brewers were on top. as of this moment, because it is Cecil Cooper stroking a 2-run single. Bases loaded. And here's his reaction as he strokes a single. The tying run in, the go-ahead run 4-3. Milwaukee takes the lead after trailing 3-1, after trailing 3-2 to California. And then the last out of the baseball game, Rod Carew, former American League Most Valuable Player, ground ball to Robin Yount, the throw to Cecil Cooper at first, and it's all over. And so the Milwaukee Brewers, who 1 week ago in Baltimore dodged a bullet, have done it again. A dramatic bases loaded 2-out single by Cecil Cooper, and the Milwaukee Brewers are into the World Series. Describe the emotion of that last out.
Oh, the last out, it's been the emotion of the whole last week. We went through this in Baltimore last week, then had 2 tough games in California, and now this emotion, it's just completely drained you. And now it's just let it all hang out.
Took guys off the bench to give us the lift that we needed, and they came through when they had to.
Yeah, I thought we lost the game in the first 5 innings. We had, I think, 9 hits after 5 innings or something like that, and they had committed 4 errors, and we only had 3 runs to show for it. That's not like our ball club.
Cardinals, Braves, does it make any difference to you which one?
All I know is we're going to the World Series. I could play the Tokyo Giants right now. I don't care.
Reliever Raleigh Fingers. So it's the Cardinals and the Brewers into the World Series. It all starts tomorrow night in St. Louis. Let's go back now to Bill and Diane.
Thank you, Jim. I hope you're well insured. You just about got mowed down on that in that stadium last night. We'll see you again in the next half hour. When we return, we're going to take a look in detail at unemployment. Who is hurting the most and how is it affecting Campaign 82?
Now, 16 minutes after the hour, the state of Michigan has the highest unemployment rate in the nation.
You know, Abominable, yeah. I love you when I see you on television giving advice to children. But tell me something. Do you have any advice to give the parents about children's advertising?
Yes, I do, Pearl Bailey. If parents have any questions about advertising directed to children, they should write for a free booklet entitled An Eye on Children's Advertising. Write the Children's Advertising Review Unit, Council of Better Business Bureaus, 845 3rd Avenue, New York, New York, 10022.
And a 22 to you.
It's a bother having to cook dinner for one after a hard day's work, but what are you going to do? Have to keep your life in balance, so you play hard and eat right. Best way to balance your eating is by remembering the 4 food groups. So I make sure that I have milk, meat, fruits and vegetables, and grains every day. And if things work out, a friend will suggest a good movie after dinner. That's a balanced day.
Monday, even square pegs can't save Marshall from video fever, so they arrange an exorcism.
Father Sadushi?
Then Captain Lewis wants to crash into showbiz, but Private Benjamin's the star.
Genius.
And Dick Shaw's the director. And Unmatched, can the 4077 beat the Marines at bowling, or have they turned chicken? Followed by Mac Davis and Barbara Mandrell hosting country music's biggest night, the Country Music Awards. It all happens Monday.
Tuesday, catch a ride with Frank Buck to an exotic world of adventure.
Do something. I'm doing.
A place where danger is just the beginning, and the next turn may be the last.
A grenade!
Bring 'em back alive. Then a world premiere movie. Robert Urich and Meredith Baxter Burney in a lopsided love story. What he did to get thrown out of her bedroom is nothing compared to what he'll do to get back in. Take your best shot Tuesday after Bring 'Em Back Alive.
Here are this afternoon's high temperatures. It's 19 minutes past the hour. Our next full weather report in about 20 minutes.
10.1%, first time in double digits since 1940. We're talking, of course, about the national unemployment figure for the last month. The figure released last Friday. It means more than 10 million Americans are out of work. For the next 3 days, we're going to be looking at the harsh realities of unemployment, to its victims and to the nation as a whole. And for starters, reports from George Herman and Rita Flynn now on who was affected the most and how their problems are influencing the current election campaign.
It isn't hard to guess where unemployment will rise most rapidly and most acutely in any recession. The first thing most people do when times look bad is to put off buying. A new car, a new freezer or refrigerator, a new house, they're all put off until times get better. So unemployment among construction workers, already at 15% when the unemployment rate was down, is now half again as much. Unemployment among auto workers has increased even more. Unemployment in metals has more than tripled. No cars or freezers means no steel being bought, no steel being stockpiled. And with old houses, cars, and appliances kept in service, repairmen are busy. Unemployment in the service industries has had only the slightest of increases. You may not consider government workers a service industry, but unemployment there, already low, has risen only infinitesimally. Clearly, the recession falls most heavily on those who lift or carry or push, and that means blue-collar workers, and especially adult men. Their unemployment rate is more than half again what it was in July of 1981. Among adult women, the unemployment rate rose much more slowly. Their unemployment rate is now less than that of adult men. Blue-collar workers already had high unemployment. Now it's half again as bad. White-collar unemployment was low before and has risen only slightly. Black unemployment was more than twice that of whites in good times. It still is, although it has risen more slowly than white unemployment. And finally, consider the importance of education. Among those who didn't finish high school, unemployment was better than 10% in the good old days in '81, and it has risen several points since. Among those with high school diplomas, it was a bit over 6% and has risen. But among college graduates, unemployment was less than 2.5% and has risen to roughly 3%. So a college diploma appears still to be a key factor in getting a job and in holding on to it through good times and bad. All of these fine distinctions, of course, tend to disappear for those who seek to represent the entire electorate. For them, it's the overall unemployment rate which counts, and this year, presumably, counts against the backers of Ronald Reagan. George Herman, CBS News, Washington.
Erie, Pennsylvania was wooed and won by Ronald Reagan. He visited the town 2 years ago, coaxing union workers to bolt the Democrats and vote Republican. At the General Electric factory, he was a big hit. GE continues to be the largest employer in the area, but Ronald Reagan has not come back to campaign this year. But in the last 6 months alone, more than 1,000 people have been laid off. Many more will be forced to take a furlough around Christmas time. Unemployment is a problem Republicans here must try to deal with as best they can.
There ain't no jobs out there to find. I mean, I looked around, but it's a matter of having the money to go look for a job.
Nearly 13% are out of work in this district. For Republican Tom Ridge running for Congress, they represent the threat of a swing vote.
We care, we want to do something, and we'll do our best we can to bring back a few jobs immediately.
But that approach doesn't always seem to work. At a local electricians union, Ridge reverts to a standard Republican line.
More government and more taxes, and tax, spend, isn't going to put you back to work.
But there is a far better reception here for Ridge's Democratic opponent, Anthony Buzz Andrzejewski. He's a state senator and a former ironworker. Almost half of the homes here are union homes, where many are angry about the loss of jobs. For the Republicans, that's bound to mean trouble.
You can't walk away from this unemployment picture if you're a Republican. These are the people that said they were going to make it better, that they were going to give all these corporate tax cuts, and the factories and the corporations would just be willing to hire more and more people. And they gave all these tax cuts, and they took the money and ran.
And for both sides, there is but one campaign issue: more jobs.
When it comes to jobs, we need wins, not losses.
Don't believe those people who got us into this economic mess and now tell us to wait. Things will get better if only we just wait.
Waiting will be difficult for Erie. Many of the unemployed are so broke they're unable to pay taxes. The city is $600,000 in debt. But at least Erie's children had something to smile about this weekend: a Columbus Day parade with beauty queens, marching bands, and on the sidelines there were politicians looking for votes. Democrat Andrzejewski has the lead, but the race is close because many of the unemployed are bewildered.
Everybody's unsure. It's like roller skating on ball bearings, you know. Nobody knows. You can't go back, you can't go forward.
And like elsewhere in the nation, there is the fear that if Republicans have no solution, the Democrats may not be any more in tune. Rita Flynn, CBS News, Erie, Pennsylvania.
We'll continue our look at unemployment and that problem throughout the week on the CBS Morning News. And coming up in our next half hour, the Tylenol aftermath, what over-the-counter drug producers and the government are doing about tamper-proof packaging. And Marshall Edwards and Charlie Moore, two of the new American League champions, Milwaukee Brewers, talking with Jim Kelly from Milwaukee. So stay right here. You may not have heard of Wallaceville, Texas, but Wallaceville is a rather distinguished place these days, notable for what it lacks: everything. Wallaceville is a town in name only, and David Dick found out what its future holds.
There once was a town here, population about 800. This was a city block. This was a busy street. But Wallaceville, Texas is one of those tough-minded little towns that simply refuses to give up. It lost the county seat in 1908. It was beaten down by the hurricane of 1915. In 1966, the Corps of Engineers condemned Wallaceville to watery oblivion. There would be a dam. There would be a reservoir. Wallaceville would be at the bottom of it, and traffic on the interstate would roar by without so much as a tip of the hat. The entire town was condemned, torn down, and carted off. Finally, after a 1973 environmental lawsuit, the Corps of Engineers decided the water would not cover Wallaceville after all.
It was terrible. It completely wiped out a town, a livelihood of the people, and a way of life.
John Middleton, the great-great-great-grandson of the founder of Wallaceville, with a non-profit foundation, is trying to put some of the pieces back together again.
It'll be a reconstructed town. The old homes will be moved back in. It'll be a Williamsburg at a much later period in time.
Willie Cooper's house, 1902. An Italian cobbler built this house, 1880. The church, 1910. The schoolhouse, 1869. This was the heart of Wallaceville, the county courthouse. Births and deaths were recorded here, deeds were filed here, lawsuits were tried here. It was a grand place. There was even room for dancing.
We had parties, we had dances, and the old courthouse was a wonderful dance floor in the old courthouse.
77-year-old Tavia LaFour was born in Wallaceville and remembers the day they tore the courthouse down.
It was a shame to tear that building down. I stood and cried. They just had to pound and dynamite and everything else. The walls were 18 inches thick. And all they did was get that iron out of the jail and sell the iron and the brick, you know, and out of the courthouse. It was a shame.
Wallaceville will never be the same, everybody knows that, but memories may rest easier if it's not forgotten altogether. David Dick, CBS News, Wallaceville, Texas.
In this country, the fast food chains have schools to train people in the fine art of Big Mac and Whopper construction. In Japan, they also train people to make a popular national food, but Gordon Josiloff reports that the art and the food may be a bit finer.
Any sushi chef worth his horseradish must know rhythm as well as soul. That's why students at Tokyo's International Sushi School roll the rice and finger the fish to a musical beat as they learn how to prepare the Japanese delicacy. Sushi is vinegared rice and fresh raw fish.
It's delicious.
Traditionally, someone wanting to be a sushi master had to undergo at least 10 years of apprenticeship. Cooking, measuring, and pressing the rice is an art. So is selecting, cleaning, and cutting the fish. Cut it the wrong way, and it smells fishy. The popularity of sushi in Japan is now mirrored in the United States, particularly among diet-conscious Americans. Growing foreign demand for chefs led to the founding of the Sushi University. Instead of 10 years in a restaurant, students become chefs after 1 year in the classroom. Japanese who want to work in the United States think this is just the right meal ticket. Among those who paid the $3,000 tuition to change careers is this former salesman.
I went to America, so I tried to this sushi school.
You want to be a sushi chef in America?
Yes.
Several Americans are also trying the sushi school. They're among foreigners attending a 3-month amateur class. Montana native Jerry Barstad runs 3 hamburger stands in the Tokyo area.
I hope I can open, or at least try to open and operate a sushi shop back in America somewhere.
The sushi school is not without competition. Robot sushi makers are now at work at some restaurants. Rhythm for them is no problem, but they need human hands to add the soul. Gordon Josoloff, CBS News, Tokyo.
We're back wishing you a happy Columbus Day. It's 1:30, and in this segment, Holly Atkinson is going to join us as we bring you up to date on the weekend developments in the Tylenol case.
And since it's the Brewers and the Cardinals for the World Series, our Jim Kelly will probe the victory last night with Marshall Edwards and Charlie Moore of the Milwaukee Brewers, words forming on his lips even as we speak. They will celebrate with beer instead of champagne in Milwaukee, I hope.
And in St. Louis, too, I'm sure. Let's move right ahead with the news. Solidarity leaders are calling for a general strike in Poland. Israel is asking Lebanon for a security agreement, and police have seized the gunman who took over an Amtrak car, and police have found 2 bodies. Bill?
Solidarity exists whether people like it or not. Those words of Lech Walesa were repeated yesterday in a message from the Union Underground. Fugitive leaders are urging Polish workers to hold a 4-hour strike November 10th. Also yesterday, both the Pope and the Archbishop of Poland condemned the military dictatorship's banning of the Union. Police in Rome now believe 5 Arabs were responsible for the machine gun and grenade attack on a Jewish temple Saturday in which a little boy was killed and 37 other people wounded. Roman Jews say they are organizing their own self-defense groups. From Israel, the Begin government has issued a strong protest, and Richard Roth has more.
Officials said Prime Minister Menachem Begin personally drafted the cabinet statement in which, for the second time in less than a month, the Israeli government criticized Italy and the Vatican.
The government of Israel stresses its conviction that it is possible to eradicate and uproot the shameful terrorism if all civilized peoples are determined to fight it relentlessly and persistently, and if it is not encouraged by the word and deed of governmental and other circles.
Asked to elaborate, spokesman Meridor said, "I don't think meeting Mr. Arafat is conducive to fighting terrorism." At the time of Arafat's visit to Italy last month, the Israeli government expressed regret and disappointment and said it was shocked the Pope had received the PLO leader at a private audience. In an interview with government radio yesterday, Israel's chief Rabbi Shlomo Goren went a step further, saying, "There is no doubt the attack was a direct result of the recent anti-Semitic incitement against Israel and every Jew everywhere, which was apparently begun by the Pope." Wary of making things worse, government officials now are quietly distancing themselves from the rabbi's remarks. He went too far, said one Israeli source, adding that the religious leader's accusation was being disavowed here as exaggerated and hostile. Richard Roth, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
2 Swedish doctors and a British researcher have won the 1982 Nobel Prize for Medicine. Sune Bergström and Bengt Samuelsson and John Vane won the prize for discovering the substances which apparently control the body's blood pressure. Sweden concedes that an intruder submarine may have escaped its chain-link trap near the country's top-secret naval base. After hunting for more than a week and setting off scores of depth charges, Sweden's Supreme Navy commander admits that the mystery sub may have escaped the first day it was spotted. However, the search is continuing. With the nation's unemployment rate in double digits for the first time since the Great Depression, President Reagan will hit the campaign trail again today. John Ferrugia reports that the president will focus almost entirely on the successful parts of his economic policies.
After a weekend at his ranch in California, the president will begin another week of campaigning for Republican candidates and selling the idea that the economy is going to get better. Politically, last week was mixed for the administration. On the road in western states, the president said there was new confidence in the economy when the stock market rallied, and he beamed when the prime rate dropped again. But the big downer came only one day later when September unemployment figures broke the 10% barrier. The administration is doing its best to downplay the political impact of those figures in the November election.
Those Americans, those 99 million Americans who are working, are better off than they were 2 years ago in terms of additional purchasing power by reason of lower taxes, which the President promised them, and by reason of the reduction in inflation, which the President promised them.
Today, the president takes that message to Texas, where unemployment jumped 1.5% in September to its highest level in over 12 years. But it's unlikely Mr. Reagan will hear any protest of his economic policies. He will address a Republican rally and attend a fundraiser for a U.S. Senate candidate. Then it's back to Washington to work on an economic speech he is planning to deliver to the nation on Wednesday night. John Ferrugia, CBS News, with the president in Santa Barbara.
In Raleigh, North Carolina, the 4-day standoff on an Amtrak sleeper car is over. The gunman surrendered this morning, but 2 of his hostages, a woman and an infant, were found dead. A few hours before he gave up, the man released a 3.5-year-old girl. She is reported in good condition. Investigators in the 7 Tylenol cyanide deaths in Chicago are reporting little progress toward finding the killer or killers. They've dismissed as a suspect a former hospital worker who threatened more Tylenol deaths unless he was paid $8,000. And a new investigation of a July cyanide death in Wyoming has turned up nothing new either.
In case you spent the weekend at a cave or sound asleep and managed somehow not to hear the news, in the American League, the Milwaukee Brewers beat the California Angels 4-3. In the National League, the St. Louis Cardinals beat the Atlanta Braves 6-2, and we'll have more on all that just ahead with Jim Kelly. And there's a little good news this morning for football fans. League owners and striking NFL players have agreed that the time has come to bring an outside mediator into the dispute. Perhaps even more significantly, as Eric Gingberg reports, both sides are being civil for the first time in weeks.
Outward displays of cordiality have been rare for football labor and management. Rarer still has been agreement on anything. But both sides announced at the end of their 3.5 hours of talks that they will now seek outside help from the Federal Mediation Service in trying to negotiate a settlement.
We've reached agreement that we're going to contact the Federal Mediation, Kay McMurray, and ask them to help us set up a procedure to choose a mediator.
Both sides are anxious to get back to the bargaining table.
With that, the union withdrew its long-standing objection to any intervention by the federal agency which mediates labor disputes. Whether the mediation service will enter the talks full force or merely help select some other third party is still unsettled. At the end of yesterday's meeting, perhaps to demonstrate a new spirit of goodwill between the adversaries, management's Donlin volunteered a lift to the airport for union leaders. All the two sides have agreed on is that they will ask the government to help them find someone to play middleman. This is hardly a negotiating breakthrough, but given the poisonous nature of the communications between the two sides in recent weeks, it did seem to be at least a start. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Port Chester, New York.
The dollar is sharply lower on overseas money markets this morning. In London, the price of gold is down 25 cents from Friday's final fix. This morning in London, gold trading for $432.75 an ounce. Let's see if Steve Deschler will predict the weather in St. Louis for the first game of the World Series tomorrow night.
I'd sooner do who's on first, but we'll give it a try. It looks as though, the way things are now, that the game will be okay for St. Louis tomorrow night, but keep in mind that's 36 hours away, and as they say, anything could happen. That's what makes weather forecasting so doggone much fun. Here's a look at the forecast map for late today that shows warm air pushing northward along the coastline. That'll increase the clouds in the northeast where it's mainly clear right now after a very cold morning. 70s and 80s down the coastline, a chance of thunder showers along with the front. Meanwhile, in the Great Lakes areas, there will be clouds around this low in the eastern Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, upper Michigan as well. There will be some rain showers there too. Temperatures 50s around the low, 60s and 70s farther south, and mainly clear skies in the southeastern plains. A few showers across Texas. 61 degrees at Roswell, New Mexico, 60 around the areas of Billings, and mainly sunshine all the way out west. Still, there will be some easterly winds across California to worry about. Here are the highs we're forecasting today, first of all, in a general way. 70s as far north as the Ohio Valley, 80s across parts of California, but 40s northern plains, 50s northeast, and 60s Great Lakes, 50s in the plains and central Rockies. For overnight lows, there will be very chilly 20s across the western high plains and the central Rockies, 60s down south, and 40s Great Lakes, and 30s northeast. Now here's a look at some weather and temperature forecasts for some locations around the country. Alpena, Michigan, 65 and partly cloudy skies. 54 in sunshine for Cheyenne. Fargo, 47 in cloudy skies. Seattle, 71 in sunshine. And Sacramento, 83 in sunshine. And we'll have a look at the rainfall picture in the next half hour.
Rain, did you say rain?
Rain.
Here's one for you. In Providence, Rhode Island, the problem was rain this weekend. And a 100-year-old shed was one of the casualties after a brick and mortar storm drain collapsed. That caused a flood of water that carved a 40-foot deep gouge near a hospital and took with it the shed and several vehicles. Shed was later lifted out in pieces, and truckloads of crushed rock were poured into the ravine to stabilize the erosion. That to keep Steve Deschler up to date. We'll be back in a moment.
Jim Kelly is next with Charlie Moore of the pennant-winning Brewers, 20 minutes before the hour. This portion of the CBS Morning News is sponsored by Maxwell House, the coffee that gives you that good to the last drop feeling.
Working seems to go much better. You seem to go much better when you share your day together. Maxwell House and you get that good to the last drop feeling with Maxwell House. Only Maxwell House gives you good to the last drop feeling. Maxwell House.
The secret of a fine wood finish is no secret. It's Minwax, a very trusted name in wood finishing products. See how easy it is to bring out the best color in wood with Wood Finish by Minwax. And for extra protection, take your choice of polyurethanes and other protective finishes by Minwax. The difference shows with wood finishing products by Minwax, and that's no secret.
If you have to wait a week for business news, maybe it's not news anymore. The Wall Street Journal gives you today's business news today, so you can use it today.
Get all the business news you need when you need it. Get the Wall Street Journal, delivered every business day for 6 months for $47, just 37 cents a day. Phone toll-free 800-228-2210. That's 6 months, $47, only 37 cents a day. Phone 800-228-2210 now.
Raspberry.
Now in your neighborhood,
Red apple.
new granola and fruit bars.
Luscious date.
It's the only 100% natural soft granola snack with real fruit in every bite. No additives or preservatives. The Nature Valley way.
Soft and chewy.
New granola and fruit bars in apple, date, or
raspberry.
Try the new soft, full of fruit granola snack from Nature Valley.
Let's check the headlines again. There's a strike threat in Poland. Israel says to Lebanon, guarantee our security. And 2 bodies are found, and the Amtrak gunman is seized. As you may have heard from Diane, if not elsewhere, the American League season boiled down to a single day yesterday. Now the California Angels have completed their work for 1982, while the Milwaukee Brewers go on to bigger things. Jim Kelly has more. Let's go back to Milwaukee live. Hello, Jim.
Good morning once again, Bill. It is more like Green Bay Packer weather, so I thought I'd bring you a football player this morning. Charlie Moore, the outstanding outfielder for the Milwaukee Brewers, a fellow who incidentally turned down a football scholarship at Auburn to play baseball and played 3 sports, baseball, basketball, and football at Minor High School in Alabama. Has it sunk in yet? You're the American League champions. You're going on to the World Series?
It really hasn't right now. I think it's going to probably take the rest of the day to sink in, and probably when we get into St. Louis and get out on the field, then you probably realize that we're the American League champs.
Charlie, how would you characterize this ball team? You went to the 162nd game against Baltimore, right down to the wire, came from behind again. You came down from an 0-2 deficit. You came back to beat the California Angels. What special characteristics does this team have?
This team has just been unbelievable all year long. It's, you know, it's had its back up against the wall, and we went into Baltimore with a 3-game lead, and all of a sudden it's always down to do or die situation, and we pulled that one out and then go at the Anaheim, and I don't think any of the guys felt any pressure at all out there. I think everybody maybe was too relaxed because the pressure we felt in Baltimore that last series was just tremendous. I've never been anything through anything like that, because the fans there in Baltimore are great fans for them. And to finally come home and get in front of some friendly faces, and a lot of guys says, well, we got them where we want them now. We got them at home, our crowd, and the Milwaukee weather. So it's just a tremendous thrill. It's something that I know as a kid, you dream about growing up playing baseball as a kid, and you always sit in front of the tube during October watching the Fall Classic, and always hoping that you'll get there someday, and this is really a dream come true.
Charlie Moore, you made a dramatic play yesterday. Ironically, Charlie, of course, used to be a catcher. After hitting .301 last year, they switched him over to an outfielder. He gave it a try. Let's go back. Reggie Jackson is on first base. Fred Lynn is the batter. Charlie, describe this throw as you pick off Reggie Jackson trying to go from third base on a rope from right field.
Yes, like you said, Fred Lynn was a hitter, and he had a high hopper, you know, by Koopy. It wasn't hit that hard. And I got a good break on the ball, and I come in, and I happened to get a real good hop when I got to the ball. Instead of having to go down all the way down to the ground to get it and then come up throwing, which takes a little bit longer, the ball hopped up real high for me, and all I had to do was turn and make a good throw.
That was one of the key plays because, of course, it nullified a potential California scoring threat. Has it sunk in? How'd you guys celebrate last night after the game? I mean, the crowd here was absolutely bananas.
Well, I guess like everybody else, you know, the champagne. And after we left here, me and my wife and a lot of the other players went over to Don Money's got a little tavern here called the Chapter 5, and we went over there and celebrated a little bit. But I guess we got home about 12 o'clock last night. We were so just mentally and I guess physically exhausted that we just went home and went to bed last night.
This bruise for you, no chance to think about the St. Louis Cardinals at all. I'll tell you one thing, Bill and Diane, these guys know how to celebrate. There was champagne in the locker room, and then Gorman Thomas took the cap off a mustard bottle, threw mustard all around the locker room, so we're going to send him the bill, right, the cleaning bill. Let's go back now to the studio.
Sounds like an awful lot of fun. Thank you, Jim Kelly. When we return, a look at tamper-proof packaging, the industry's and government's response to the Tylenol tragedy.
14 minutes before the hour, when the first Tylenol deaths were reported, there were 11 million bottles of Tylenol capsules in stores. This portion of the CBS Morning News is sponsored by Dentrol Liquid Denture Adhesive, a comfortable way to hold dentures.
Denture wearers speak out about denture adhesives.
Hate them all.
I love mine.
What? Pastes are gooey and powders are gritty.
Not my adhesive. I use Liquid Dentrol, the first liquid denture adhesive.
A liquid?
You bet. Dentrol is smooth without all that goo and grit, and it flows on in a thin stream that holds so comfortably you almost forget you're wearing dentures. Now what do you have to say?
I'm in love with Liquid Dentrol denture adhesive.
For a comfortable hold.
A new day is dawning. Morton has made salt even better. Morton Light Salt. It looks, measures, cooks, and most importantly has the flavor of salt. Great salt flavor, yet only half the sodium of regular salt. The time has come for a better salt. Morton Light Salt with half the sodium. We're making salt better.
Morton, when it rains, it pours.
There's more to John Hancock than life insurance.
In my business, creating something new isn't enough. It has to be what people want. That's why the John Hancock companies constantly develop new financial services that people like me really need. Everything from employee benefits programs to mutual funds, even auto and home reinsurance. When John Hancock offers something new, there's a future in it.
John Hancock. We can help you here and now, not just hereafter.
I know this Hart's 2-in-1 plus reflecting flea and tick collar really saved my cat's life, because I was driving the car that almost hit her. I was about a half a block from home. I don't know how she got out, but all of a sudden I saw a bright glow up the street. Her Hart's collar was reflecting my headlights. Thank goodness I had time to stop. Cats really need nighttime safety. Plus they get 5 months of flea and tick protection, all from the Hart's 2-in-1 plus reflecting collar. Now the famous Hart's flea and tick killer can be a lifesaver too.
At 11 minutes before the hour, here's today's weather outlook. A complete summary from Steve Deschler in about 20 minutes.
In the city and suburbs of Chicago, 130 agents of the law continue to try to break the case of the 7 Tylenol murders. Meredith Vieira has all the latest on the investigation.
7 people have been buried, victims of cyanide-laced Tylenol. The funerals are over, but the case is far from being solved. Investigators had been concentrating on 4 key suspects. Over the weekend, one of those suspects, a former employee at a Chicago suburban hospital, was arrested and charged with extortion. Police say he had threatened to murder patients with poison Tylenol unless he was paid $8,000. He is not the first extortionist to pop up since the killings began, and like the others, police say he is not the one they're looking for, just another individual trying to take advantage of a tragic situation. More than 200 leads have been checked out and eliminated, and authorities admit they're still not sure what kind of a madman they're dealing with.
We're trying to figure out what kind of a person would randomly commit the acts that have occurred that would apparently, without feeling, take the life of a 12-year-old such as Mary Kellerman, or indeed the other people who lost their lives.
Whoever that person is, police do not believe he is part of a nationwide poisoning plot. They say there is no apparent connection between the killings here and 2 cyanide-related deaths in Wyoming and Philadelphia. Meredith Vieira, CBS News, Chicago.
The largest drugstore chain in Chicago, Walgreens, says that sales of pain and sleep drugs, all kinds, not just capsules, are down almost 40% in the Chicago area and more than 15% nationwide. Representatives of over-the-counter drug industry and the government are working together now to develop a system of tamper-resistant packaging that would thwart would-be poisoners in the future and reassure the millions of consumers of these products. And Dr. Holly Atkinson has dropped by this morning to show us, let us actually see visually what kind of tamper-resistant packaging they're talking about. Holly, good to see you.
Good morning.
Let's start with some examples so that we know really what they're talking about.
There are some products on the market now that can fit the definition of what the task force in Washington has come up with that says would give consumers visual evidence that a package has either been opened or tampered with. And we brought some this morning to show. That's called a film wrapper, and obviously if the wrapper has been broken, the box is opened, in essence.
Aha, cellophane, okay. How about these bottle tops? Now, we've all seen these. Are these really effective?
Well, the one on your left is quite effective. That's a metal breakable cap, and when that is opened, it leaves a ring around the bottle.
Right.
It's much like a soft drinks. Have caps like that. That is a shrink seal. Now, some people claim that can be heated and put back together again, and if someone wants to get into a bottle, unfortunately, there's probably a way. But there are ways to tell. This jar here, if you open it up, is like instant coffee. There's a paper seal over the top, and that has to be slit. And if that's slit at all, then the bottle's been opened, and it shouldn't be used.
You could peel it back and then reseal it. No. Okay. All right. These tubes.
Actually, this is quite interesting because most ointments come in tubes that are open, but there's one tube here that you've just opened that has to be punctured.
Right.
And maybe in the future, many of the tubes will have covers just like that. You'll have to puncture it to get in.
As opposed to this one where the ingredients are readily available.
And if a consumer has a choice, they should obviously take the one that has to be punctured.
Okay, and
foil wrappers.
Again, sealed on the end. Now, why doesn't every capsule come in this form?
Actually, that's it. Manufacturers didn't make these covers to be tamper-resistant. That was never thought of when they developed these. It was to provide for freshness and to keep the product stable. And in this case, you don't want water hitting the gelatin capsule.
So all of these packagings are just for freshness. They're really not.
Right, it really wasn't. Tamper resistance wasn't taken into account.
Okay, what do we have here?
That's an aerosol container, and actually that's almost tamper-proof. That's under vacuum seal, and it's pretty hard to get in there and tamper with that one.
I see. So if you opened it at all, it wouldn't squirt anymore because you would lose the spray. Is there evidence that people are not taking the medicine they should be taking?
A lot of people say that's true, but we don't have any substantiation. Some pharmacists have told us that people are looking for alternatives. They'll come in and ask for products in tablet form instead of capsule form. And many products do come in tablet form, but not all of them.
We should, by the way, everybody assumes blithely that we all know the difference between tablets and capsules, but just to make sure that we do show the difference. We're really talking about tablets here on the bottom and capsules.
Some drugs have to be made in capsule form because the medication cannot be pressed into a tablet. Most of a tablet is an inert substance, which means it's not an active drug. It's all the stuff that holds the pill together. Some medications must be put in a capsule to stay together.
Is this enormously expensive for companies to do? Are they going to all do this?
That's one of the things this task force has to determine, how expensive it will be for industry to convert over to making all packages tamper resistant. And we should know that fairly soon.
Thank you, Dr. Holly Atkinson. Some kinds of packaging to look for now and to watch for in the future, and we'll have more CBS Morning News in a moment.
Tomorrow, coping with the higher costs of higher education. The time now, 6 minutes before the hour.
A lot of typewriters make it easy to produce letter-perfect letters. But what makes a perfect typewriter? If you want one that erases by itself, you can get the correcting Selectric typewriter or the new Xerox 610 memory writer. But if you want one that erases and also remembers to set columns, center, and underline automatically, then you can get their electronic model 50 or the new Xerox memory writer. But if you want one that erases, sets columns, centers, underlines automatically, and also has a memory that stores phrases and paragraphs, then you can get their electronic model 60 or the new Xerox memory writer. But if you want one that erases 2 lines, sets columns, centers, underlines automatically, has about 30% more memory, is upgradable, and costs under $1,360, then you can only get the new 610 memory writer from Xerox.
No matter which of these stomach remedies you take, for gas, pain, and pressure symptoms, we'll prove Gas X tablets break up painful gas bubbles better and faster. Watch. Intestinal gas bubbles are much like bubbles in beer. Add one of those stomach remedies here, Gas X here. 1 minute later, stomach remedy shows little change, but Gas X breaks the gas bubbles. They're almost gone. For fast relief, get Gas X, the 100% gas reliever.
There's a lot about the business world you can't learn in any textbook. You learn it here, the Wall Street Journal. Today's business, always current, always timely. Believe me, it's required reading.
Get all the business news you need when you need it. Get the Wall Street Journal, delivered every business day for 6 months for $47, just 37 cents a day. Phone toll-free 800-228-2210. That's 6 months, $47, only 37 cents a day. Phone 800-228-2210 now.
Again, our top stories. Train gunman is seized in Raleigh, North Carolina. They probe arson in the Los Angeles fires, and the Cards meet the Brewers in the World Series. Also in the news this morning, NASA is saying the space shuttle can help light up your nightlife. Some NASA scientists have come up with an idea for using the shuttle to put giant solar reflectors into space capable of lighting up 4 or 5 cities for several hours at night with a glow that comes down from the space reflector equal to 56 moons. Former President Jimmy Carter says U.S. intelligence knew where all 52 hostages were at the time of the ill-fated rescue raid. His memoirs are being excerpted in Time. This week he says he is still haunted by the failure of the raid almost 30 months ago. Nothing new on what Prince Andrew and porno actress Koo Stark are up to in Mustique. 2 photographers for the London papers tried to get some exclusive photos yesterday. Instead, they got arrested for tracking the couple. If you've been waiting for Mickey Mouse to return to the screen, you'll have to wait a little longer. Disney officials say even though Hollywood cartoonists settled their strike over the weekend, they won't have Mickey's first movie in 29 years ready by Christmas.
Coming up in our next hour, the story of Maximilian Kolbe, who gave his life for another and was canonized as a saint yesterday. Also, we'll meet Ricky Skaggs, who's up for 5 country music awards tonight, and Jeff Greenfield will have an unexpurgated look at the new condensed Reader's Digest Bible.
Squeeze
a whole lot
all
ahead.
down.
Hope to see you then.
Stay with us.
The Square Pegs arrange an exorcism with Father Guido Sarducci. Then Captain Lewis tries to crash into showbiz, and Dick Shawn is the director. And on MASH, can the 407-7th beat the Marines at bowling? Followed by Mac Davis and Barbara Mandrell hosting the Country Music Awards. It's all Monday.
This is CBS.